Hey guys, this is Jaden here from Couch to the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. On today's episode 17, I'll be going to the topic of the domino effect with Hugo Toovey. How you going, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Jaden. Thanks for having me, mate.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Honestly, it's an honour to have you on the show for your story, for what you've been through. I think a lot of people can take a lot out of you as a person, and I think you're most definitely helping a lot of people going through similar experiences you've been through.
No, thanks, Jaden. Well done on the podcast you're doing, and
Thanks,
keeping these important conversations going. It's definitely the more of them, the better.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, so the topic, the reason why I called it the domino effect is because for some people, we go through quite a tragic experience in our life, and we sit back and go, surely nothing else can happen. Sometimes we have that domino effect where one thing happens, more things lead upon that. And fortunately, because of where Hugo is now, that was sort of what happened to Hugo. And I'm not going to share his story because I want him to share it in his own perspective, but that's essentially what I think and how I think what he's been through. So anyways, guys, I'm going to hand over to Hugo and I'll let him share his story from the start, and I'll ask questions along the way.
No, I love it, mate. I actually haven't heard of the domino effect in regards to my story or my journey, but it's there's a first for everything. So off to a good start in terms of I'm learning something already, but I actually quite like that because it's spot on. Sometimes in life you think that that's it. I've gone through enough. Surely it's onwards and upwards from here. But unfortunately, life is life, and it's not always you don't get to pick and choose your journey. And as you're about to find out, or the listeners will find out, for me, that was very, very much the case. So look, I'm happy to sort of start back to when I first went through this health journey.
For sure. Wherever you want to start, mate. Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, look, mate. So for me, I kind of actually like to bring it back. So I joined the Army. I'm a full-time Army captain at the moment. Yep. I've been in for 11 years. I'm currently 29. I joined the Army when I was 18, straight from school, and I commenced 4 years of officer training in Canberra. And I suppose where I like to sort of start my story and sort of my journey and what's probably relevant to your podcast is my first really experience to suicide. Obviously, it's a heavy topic. A lot of people listening, a lot of people have been impacted by suicide, whether it be through a friend, family member, or if you've had your own personal struggles. And so for me, it was second year Army training. I was 20. My best mate was 22. It was a very tight-knit community in that sort of Army training, good close mates. And anyway, unfortunately, Pete was my good mate, was struggling a lot. We were there for him. We would try to help him any way we could. But at the end of the day, we were young kids. I didn't know anything about mental health, self-care, all these topics that, you're probably well aware of now, Jaden, and I'm very passionate about. I didn't know anything back then at the age of 20. And unfortunately, Pete ended his own life, and he was
sorry to hear that, mate.
No, look, it's very difficult when you go through that, and a lot of people probably have had someone close to them go through that. And for me, my room was next door to him. He was a close mate of mine. We did everything together, and then he ended his own life, and he was 22.
What do you think as guys? And for women as well. Why do you think it's so hard for us to open up and to talk about these bigger questions of why am I feeling this way, and why don't I want to talk about my emotions?
Yeah, no, and that's exactly it, mate. I think there is getting better, but there's still that stigma, mainly amongst men. I think women are in general, some are better than others, but women are in general better at talking about their emotions, talking about how they're feeling, whereas men aren't great at it. And I think that's been instilled in a lot of men at a young age when we're boys. When you're kind of growing up to your teenage years, you can't cry. It's not manly to cry, and you kind of 100%. Suppress your emotions, and you're a man. That's kind of the image that we're all taught from a young age. And I think that just continues to grow until you get to those vulnerable years of being your teenage years, your 20s, your 30s, and you don't know how to deal with it. And that's why suicide's a massive crisis in Australia at the moment. And every day there are seven men every day ending their own life. So I think, there's still more that needs to be done, and that's why you're doing what you're doing. And,
yes,
I'm doing what I'm doing with Movember, and, we'll touch on all that type of stuff, towards the end of this podcast, mate. But so that was my first real experience with all of that. It was very difficult.
yeah,
And look, presentations I give every time that's why I wanted to start my story off with Pete, because it's been such a profound impact on my life. And so I like to reflect on him, because it kind of drives me to do what I do. And I think every time I talk to someone like yourself or be on a podcast or whatever, if you can stay grounded and you realize, well, this is why we're having these conversations at the end of the day, I think it kind of brings me right back, 9 years ago.
100%.
So yeah, that was the difficult part for that, but kind of, you kind of learned to crack on. We got the support we needed as young kids.
Yep.
Cracked on with my army training, and then sort of fast forward a little bit to 2013. I had 6 months left of army training. I was 21. I was young. I was fit. I was just like a typical young 21-year-old bloke. And I had 6 months left of training before I graduated as a young lieutenant. Yep. Life was looking pretty good. And that was until I gave my old man a call on his birthday. So it's the 18th of June, 2013. Remember the date pretty well. Gave him a call, and on a completely unrelated side, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I've got this lump on my testicle. What do you think?" And he said, "Well, mate, have you gone to the doctor?" It seems obvious. And I said, "No, I haven't." And I'd probably put it off for over 6 months. And it seems silly, but at the same time, if you're listening to this, picture a, frozen pea in your freezer. It's like a little painless frozen pea sitting on your testicle. It doesn't hurt. It didn't impact my life. I was still doing PT. I was still going out hitting the piss. I was still, doing all the things a young bloke does. So I was just hoping it just disappeared, like we all do. We don't really want it to be anything bad. So anyway, through my dad's encouragement, went off to the doctor, had a feel around, had an ultrasound, and then basically got a call the next day. Went back into his rooms and said, "Mate, unfortunately, that little pea-sized lump you had on your testicle, unfortunately, you've got testicular cancer."
Wow.
So, yeah, that was difficult. And I was 21 at that stage, and that was sort of the start of a pretty long cancer journey.
And when you got that message, obviously being of a young age as well, and doing all the things that a young bloke does, i.e. hit the piss, having fun and living the life you want to live, how did that impact you, and how did you figure out a way of overcoming that hurdle and going, you know what, I'm not going to let this get the better of me, and I'm going to continue to do all the things I want to do?
Yeah, good question, mate. Look, to be honest, I was, I think because I was young, I had that on my side as far as, you're pretty optimistic. I still felt pretty fit, and I knew the army was supportive of me, which I'm lucky about. But I suppose the difficult part is it did spread. So this is the prevalence of early detection. And if you're a bloke listening to this right now, and, it might be the prompter to fill your nuts in the shower tonight, because, testicular cancer, it is the young man's cancer, most common cancer in young men from 16 to 30. But at the same time, it's highly curable if detected early. So it's kind of one of those things that if you notice a lump or something's not right, go get checked, go off to your doctor. And unfortunately for me, I didn't do that in the first instance, and it did spread all to my abdominal lymph nodes. It started to spread upwards to my lung and my chest area, and I had to go on some pretty intensive chemo and surgery. So although I was optimistic and I wanted to crack on, in the back of my mind, it was difficult because I knew I was about to have all this massive cancer treatment and chemo. And so it was difficult, but I suppose I could still graduate. And so that's one thing that I was fortunate about, where they said, "Mate, you can still graduate." And so there's actually a photo of me with my twin brother. I'm a twin, and I just graduated December 2013. I had the bloody white uniform, the sword, got the 2 pips on my shoulders. Life was looking great. But then, I knew in the back of my mind I was about to start some pretty major cancer treatment. So it's a kind of an interesting one, because all my mates are about to embark on long military careers. They're getting posted into state. They're about to commence in the next chapter of their lives. And here I am at the age of 22 at that stage, graduating with my sword, my twin brother, ready to go. But then as little as 6 days later, I was, hooked up to an IV drip, commencing 4 months of chemotherapy back home in Adelaide. So it was not exactly the start of my military career I wanted.
Definitely. And how long do you think you knew that there was something not right, or you felt that pee in your testicle for?
Look, it's hard to pinpoint it, but I always say like around 6 months, because I knew it was there for a while. I knew it was there. Like I'd get out of the shower, I'd always play around with it. In my head, I'd think, I reckon it's getting smaller. Just trying to make me believe that. Yeah. Exactly. Not make a big deal of it. Then I'd also go on Google and search lump on testicle. And yes, you would see things like testicular cancer, but you'd also see things like, it's just a cyst. It's just these ones. So I'd always look at the good articles I found, the good things I found on my phone, hoping that that's what it was. But it's just being naive young bloke. It's one of those things that I'm a completely different person now. My partner even kind of says I'm a bit of a hypochondriac, which I think is justified with what I've been through. But look, I urge anyone listening and throughout my next sort of, 30 minutes or so of my story, the importance of early detection is just massive. Like that's what saves lives, whether that's cancer, mental illness, depression, all those things. Early detection and early treatment of all these things makes it so much easier to cure these things rather than just putting it off. So it's a massive takeaway early on is that there's no shame in seeking help. And if something's not right, head off to the doctor.
What actually took you, like, because you were saying there's probably about the 4 to 6 month gap where you kind of notice this pee in your testicle. Why did it take so long for you to go, you know what, maybe I need to get it checked up just to make sure it may be something bad or it may not be something bad?
Well, I don't know. Look, at this stage, you need to realise, like, I've just done 3.5 years of army training. I've got 6 months to go. The finish line's in sight. They're long days, long hours, lots of assessments and shoots and, field exercises. And it's a busy time. Like anyone who's gone through, the Royal Military College done true. And it's a full-on 12 months. Like you hardly have time to bloody breathe, let alone, worry about these things. And so for me, it was just one of those things I didn't want to worry about. So it's kind of like I can't be bothered going off to a doctor because deep down, like, what if it is bad? I don't want this to impact me graduating. I've got 6 months to go. So I think it's one of those things that you're hoping that it's nothing. You don't want to get the bad news, but the old, bad news doesn't get any better with age. It's so true. So I think that's probably it. I'm busy. I'm hoping it's, nothing. I just wanted to graduate. I just didn't want it to be, something I had to worry about.
So essentially your focal point was on, the finish line and not having anything get in your path and way of being able to succeed.
For sure, mate. Like, fuck me. Like, what if, back then, not knowing what I knew now, like, well, what if it was testicular cancer? Well, I don't want to have that. So you kind of almost numb it out, blank it out of your mind. And just like I said, I'd literally have some days where I'd be like, oh, no, I think the lump's actually got a bit smaller today. No, yeah, and I think it's almost going away. Or sometimes I'd be like, I can't even notice it anymore. So it's like me trying to believe or tell myself that it wasn't there. So anyway.
Yeah. I'll be the first person to say that I'm quite a hypochondriac in that I've had many home doctors come out and check my testicles, and I'm not afraid to say it because I think as blokes essentially we just need to, like, if the moment we see anything or sense anything that isn't feeling right, whether it be with your testicles or anything in general, you might feel like your lymph nodes are up or anything, get a doctor out, get him to check it out. And the worst thing, and worst case scenario, you might need to get it checked, but early sign and early detection is what you want.
Absolutely, mate. And I'm a big one to, you're normal better than anyone.
Exactly.
You're normal better than anyone. You know your body, yourself better than anyone. So if you're sitting there thinking, my bowels have been playing up, which we're going to get to that part of my story soon, or I've got this lump, rash, bump, this, freckle on my forearms been a bit weird lately. When was it last time I had a skin check? My mental health has just been off. The general rule of thumb, and this isn't me making this up, this is sort of medical advice that I've been passed on. They say 2 weeks. So if you kind of, let's say your bowels are playing up for 2 weeks. Let's say you've got this lump that's, causing a lot of pain for 2 weeks. Let's say you've got this rash that's not going away after 2 weeks. Generally speaking, if that's the case, that's usually a prompter to say, hey, all right, something's probably not right here. Like you said, let's go off to a doctor. And that's the important thing for people to realize. It's not if you've had a few too many beers on the weekend and you've got some stomach cramps and your bowels are playing up and you're rushing off to a doctor the next day because you've got bowel cancer. That's not what it's about. It's kind of being aware, knowing what your normal is. And if it's consistently playing up, whatever that might be, that's usually a prompter to say, hey, I'm going to pick the phone up, book in to see the doc.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest issues, especially for blokes, is that we carry this should be right attitude where it doesn't matter if we've actually got these rashes or freckles or whatever it may be. We'll get through it. She'll be right. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Nothing will get in our way.
Mate, the Aussie culture, she'll be right is massive. That's not just, your farmers and, your country guys out there. It's the army's like that, everywhere. It's that's exactly what you said. The whole she'll be right. Let's crack on. Let's do it. Let's just kind of crack on with our day. Let's not worry about these things. And that's what things are slowly starting to change, which is awesome. And that's what we just got to all keep these conversations going. And like you said, mate, good on you for being proactive and checking your nuts and
thanks, mate.
That's what it's all about. You then encourage your mates to do the same.
Exactly. And going on with your story, you were saying, so you've now been given the call by the doctor, and he's told you that you've now got testicular cancer, and you've had a couple of checkups, and you now found out that it's spread into your gut.
Yeah, look, mate. So I then, like I said, graduated, went back home, had to have the chemotherapy for my testicular cancer. That was about 4 months. Hit me pretty hard. But at the same time, it was there for a reason. It's doing its job. So, I was the classic, if you're picturing chemo, I was the classic chemo patient, lost all my hair, lost the eyebrows, very dark rings, pale, fatigued, curled up on a toilet, vomiting, sick. That was my type of experience with chemo. And not every chemo is the same for different cancers. Some people can take chemo in forms of tablets. Some people can take it over 12 months, but less intensive. Some people don't lose any hair. But for me, I was the one that you probably see on the movies. That's how I looked. And even looking at photos now, I definitely look completely different. So I cracked on with chemo for 4 months. Still pretty upbeat and positive then, because my prognosis was still pretty good. I was always mindful in the fact that I was going to beat it. I never once thought that I wasn't going to beat it. So that was always something that just kept me going. And then I had, unfortunately, chemo didn't quite do its job. There was still some remaining mass in my sort of abdominal lymph node area. And so I had to have retroperitoneal lymph node dissection, which is just a massive sort of 8-hour operation where they just sort of basically 30 centimeter incision, take out all 46 lymph nodes. Wow. I was in ICU for a week, hospital for a month, a few little complications thrown in there. But ultimately, got through all of that. Then it's just ticking the box as it comes. And long road to recovery, building up that physical strength, that mental strength, with the goal to wanting to be deployed in the army, get medically fit, get medically upgraded, do what I set out to achieve. That was my goal. So it kind of took me a couple of years to get there. Took off the 3-month bloods when they came, the 6-month scans, the little goals, just ticking those boxes as they came. And that was very much it for me. Went traveling and life went on. Life went on, and you just kind of just cracked on with it. The hair starts growing back. You start to put on a bit more weight, go back to the gym. And you start back
to normality.
Exactly, mate. Back to normality, feel like a normal bloke again. And that really took me up until sort of 2017, which is when I had the, as you call it, mate, the domino effect, and had another sort of turn in my story.
Yeah, and at this point, and for those who are listening and who may be going through something quite difficult or tragic, or maybe going through cancer themselves, how do you actually keep yourself in a really good state of mind? I mean, obviously for yourself, you've just stated that you've set little minuscule goals and achievable goals. So ultimately, you're building your strength up again because you want to get back into the army. For those who are going through something quite similar, maybe, do you think goal setting is quite essential, or do you think there's anything else that you could put into play that maybe help and assist you into staying in this positive headspace?
Yeah, look, for that point in my life, I think, like, when you hit the word realistic, realistic goal setting, I think can be very, very powerful in the fact that you can kind of, for your mental health too, but you can have that sense of achievement.
Definitely.
And for me, like, when I was really crook in hospital with chemo or recovering from surgery, for me, one of those goals would be today I'd be walking 50 meters. You'd be walking outside around the little veggie garden at the hospital. That was one of my goals. But when I achieved that, that was a sense of accomplishment. I achieved it. I'm another step in the right direction. So it doesn't need to be, these massive goals in that point in time. Like, in 5 years' time, I'm going to be running, an ultra marathon or something like that. Yes, you might get there, but I'm talking about realistic short-term goals that will keep you distracted enough to get through those difficult times. Like I said, it might even be today I'm going to sit up and have a shower by myself without the nurse. Those would be the little goals I would have in my head. Or today I'm going to try and eat a bit more and hopefully not vomit. Those little things like that, which people listening to this might think that they just take those little things for granted. But for me, that's what helped me get through. And to be honest with you, even through my next journey, my next chapter of my story, that's always been a method I've used to help me get through some of the darker days. It's just that short-term, realistic goal setting to kind of just keep you motivated, to distract you a little bit, and to give you that sense of accomplishment of, you know what, I've actually achieved something here, rather than beating yourself up thinking, fuck me, can't get out of bed today, I'm really struggling, I'm useless, I'm a waste of time, I'm not going to get better. You can kind of go, actually, look at this, I've just ticked off fucking 5 things today. I have achieved something. So that, for me, it definitely helped. And it's something that I encourage people to give that a crack. And I'm happy to, offline or whatever, if people have any questions, to go into some more detail with it, because I think it's definitely an important and useful tool.
Your second chapter in life. So you're saying that you've got through the chemo, they found a few little spots, and from there, you're saying there's a domino effect where more things kind of led upon that?
Yeah, mate. So that's kind of when my I suppose up until that point, I was absolutely positive, optimistic. My mental health was pretty good. Things were ticking along. And I think it wasn't until, and to kind of paint the picture, I've gone through all that treatment, the chemo, the surgery, all that stuff, right? And then at the end of 2017, I get promoted to captain.
Oh, good on you, mate.
I'm, medically upgraded. I'm fit for deployment. I'm building strength. I'm feeling good. You get that. There's a photo of me standing next to my dad. I've got the little captain certificate. I've been promoted.
Oh, brilliant.
I think it was around early December. So I think I still kept my little CD Mo. So I've got the Mo going through Movember, and things are looking great. I got a posting to Brisbane with my partner, moved to Brisbane in a great job role that I wanted, being sort of in the welfare space. And the cherry on the cake was June 2018. So, picture all these things I'm talking about now. Life's looking pretty good. June 2018, I'll have my 5-yearly scan for testicular cancer. 5-year scan. So for those listening, essentially a 5-year scan for cancer. In most cases, if you get that clear 5-year scan, it means you're almost in complete remission. It's usually a milestone that a lot of cancer survivors strive towards, because it's kind of that massive, we talk about ticking the box, is a massive tick in the box. It kind of means like, this is amazing. I'm almost cancer-free. I've conquered testicular cancer. So that was kind of the cherry on the cake. I remember cracking a bottle of champagne with my partner in our place in Brisbane, 2 dogs, doing well at work, enjoying life, happy, healthy, things are going well. And at that stage, it's almost like I wish that was, that's my story. And I could talk to you today about that story, and that in itself's a good story. I'm here, I'm passionate, I'm sharing these important messages, and I've gone through this advanced testicular cancer. I wish it could just stop there. But the unfortunate part for me is that feeling that I had of that happiness, feeling normal, feeling like cancer didn't define who I was. That was really short-lived. And then basically 2 months later, I started getting some sort of bowel complications. My bowel started playing up, and we just spoke about the importance of being proactive with your health. And I suppose
get checked.
Absolutely checked up. I suppose if there's any, and you talk about Jade, mate, being a hypochondriac, tongue in cheek, but to be honest with you, I absolutely was similar, and my bowels were playing up. I spoke about that 2-week rule. It was definitely over 2 weeks where I thought, nah, this is still not great. This is still not good. Spoke to my partner about it and said, I'm going to the doctor. Went straight to the doctor, didn't put it off. He said, yeah, mate, we'll take you off for a colonoscopy, which is basically a camera up the bum, see what's going on. Day procedure, pretty straightforward. Anyway, at that stage, I thought that, it might be a bit of inflammation. It might be a bit of irritable bowel syndrome or something like that, nothing serious. And then I get a call the next day from the gastroenterologist receptionist, and she calls me up and says, hey, Hugo, the results came back from that colonoscopy. Terry, who's the doctor, wants to see you. And I remember literally picking my phone up saying, yeah, no worries. I'm booked in to see him in 2 weeks' time. I've got the date here. And she said, no, he wants to see you this afternoon.
Oh, no.
And straight away, you get that.
Shitting yourself.
Yeah, that sinking feeling where your stomach just drops and you think,
fuck,
that's weird. Like, why would he want to see me this afternoon? I'm scheduled to see him in 2 weeks. Like, surely if it was just a bit of inflammation, that could be put off for 2 weeks anyway. So I was still not jumping to conclusions, but I knew something wasn't right. Anyway, I called my partner, Amber, who's a nurse, and she fortunately just finished her shift. Went to the doctor's appointment that afternoon together, and then sort of Terry called us in his rooms. I'm 26 at this stage, in my army uniform with my partner, go into the rooms, and he kind of sits us down and sort of turns his computer screen around and said, look, that colonoscopy we had, there are some nasty polyps in there, and I'm sorry to say, but you've got bowel cancer. He didn't really beat around the bush. He just said it, and there I'm just sitting there, just thinking. I just heard those words, thinking, "Fuck me!" Like you can't be serious. I remember I literally asked him. I said, "Are you sure you've got the right person?" I said, "I've literally just had a clear CT scan for testicular cancer, and now I've got fucking bowel cancer, and it's completely unrelated, different cancer, nothing to do with testicular cancer."
Oh.
So you need to think, like, I've just conquered this testicular cancer. I've literally absolutely fucking smashed it. I mastered it. I was a testicular cancer guru. I knew everything about it. That was just a part of my chapter. I put it behind me, and wow, wasn't that an interesting experience type of thing. And here I am 2 months later in this whole new different ball game with something like bowel cancer, which is Australia's second biggest cancer killer, at 26 in Brisbane. And then you're told that. So it was, a difficult time. That was the end of 2018. And that really brings me up to chatting to you today, mate. It's basically almost similar, close enough to 2 years ago today. And it's, unfortunately been a bit of a ride and a bit of a journey over the last 2 years.
And how did you stay afloat when you got given the news at 26, thinking that all of this stuff was behind you?
Look, it's difficult. That's what I talked about. I felt like I was just, and you're touching that domino effect. And look, it was one of those things where I felt like I didn't know if I could just go through this again. It was so deflating. It was just this time where you think, fuck, here we go again.
Yeah, surely not me. Yeah.
And you think, but then I think because I knew so much about testicular cancer, I was always quite optimistic, whereas the only thing I knew about bowel cancer was that it was a killer. And so I think that made me a bit more scared to know that, well, hang on a second, this is a different beast altogether. We're talking about a cancer which kills more people than breast and cervical cancer combined. We're talking about a massive cancer killer here. We're not talking about this testicular cancer, which is pretty curable, This is something different. So I felt like it was absolutely, I was scared. I kind of felt like a bit vulnerable and lost and just out of my comfort zone, and the fact that I just had no idea what to expect. And I suppose I was pretty naive in the fact that I remember even saying to him, let's just crack it out. Can we just smash it with some chemo? I've done chemo before. Chemo's not that hard. Let's do some more chemo. And these were the types of questions I was having. And he said, look, Hugo, I'm sorry, mate, but I've booked you in for a surgeon in 2 days. He's like, we got to act quick. Once this starts spreading, it's hard to contain. We got to remove your bowel. Like we got to move quickly. And I think as soon as you hear that you're going to be taking massive chunks of these vital organs out of your body, then you kind of know you're in for a shock. And that's why I think as soon as he said that, it kind of hit me. And look, I held it together pretty well. It's funny that I can't remember what I did yesterday, but I can remember that moment vividly. I can remember that, where I was sitting, my partner was to my left, where my surgeon, doctor was sitting, where the receptionist was, walking down the stairs, where the car was parked. Like I can remember it so clearly. And it wasn't until I kind of walked outside and just processed everything. I was probably 2 meters in front of my partner, Amber, and I just burst into tears. I was just like, and at that stage, I didn't cry much. Yeah. Different now. I'm all for a good cry, but at that stage, I didn't cry much. I always tried to put up that sort of that
masculine
picture.
Wall.
Exactly, mate. Masculine. What I looked at as being strong, and I put up that wall, and then I walked outside in my army uniform, and I just burst into tears. And I was just like, almost just like, nah, that's it, type of thing. And
yeah.
My partner was there, and she said, "You're right to drive," and I said, "Yeah, look, I'll be okay." And we got in the car, and then, the next hardest part for me was then telling my family. Yeah. At that stage, I did not even tell them I had a colonoscopy because it was just such like a routine thing after what I had gone through with all these hospital stays and what I had gone through medically, that I hadn't even told them I was having a colonoscopy. And they had been through this whole journey with me with this testicular cancer and this whole health journey. And here I am at 26 in Brisbane with no family support around us. They all lived in Adelaide. On a Tuesday afternoon, here I am calling them up, my dad, mum, twin brother, my sister, and letting them know that, hey guys, guess what? I've got bowel cancer. That's difficult. That's difficult when you know that you don't just go through this shit by yourself. You're impacting family. And so, but yeah, it was definitely a difficult time. That's for sure.
And for where you are now, how are you going with yourself now?
Yeah, look, mate, as I sit here today talking to you, look, I'm clear, I'm cancer free, and
fantastic.
I suppose, which is awesome. So I suppose from that moment when I got told, fast forwarding to now, I had a journey. I had multiple surgeries, abdominal surgeries. I had 6 months of immunotherapy, different drugs, different medications, different hospital visits, complications, twisted bowels thrown in there.
Wow.
Month hospital stays. I lost 22 kilos in hospital. I was real crook. I've, been through it all the last couple of years. But essentially, to kind of just summarize it all, what they've ended up having to do at the end of last year was remove the entire large bowel, move the rectum. I did initially have a stoma ileostomy bag for about 8 months, the external a bag, which is how I went to the bathroom. But then the start of this year, I had what I hope was my 10th and final abdominal surgery at the start of this year in Sydney. Is the surgeon created, which is pretty phenomenal. He kind of, what's remaining of my small bowel, he's kind of stretched it down, sort of stitched it onto itself to create like a J shape, hence why it's called a J pouch. And then the bottom of that small bowel and that pouch that he's created, he's sort of stapled it to my anus area.
Wow.
And then that kind of acts as my small bowel, large bowel, and rectum all in one. And it's kind of my new normal. It's the new way I go to the bathroom. I might go to the bathroom 10 to 12 times a day. I'm on medication for the rest of my life. Some days are better than others, but ultimately I'm cancer free, which I'd like to bloody think so, because I don't have a bowel anymore, so I can't get bowel cancer anymore. But that was the kind of the drastic measures we took to say, mate, we got to do this. And if we don't, look, one day you're probably going to get bowel cancer that's going to spread. and then we're talking life and death. So for me, it was like, fuck, it's a big decision to make at 20. Now I'm 29. At that stage, to make that at 27 was difficult. But mate, look, I'm doing pretty well to be cancer free after the journey that I've had over the last 7 years or so. You know, fit and healthy again, back at the gym, looking after my mental health. You know, doing some amazing things that I'm pretty proud of. I look back at it all and think, fuck, it's been a journey.
Mate, no, I just want to say that, mate, I'm so happy for you for where you are now, and I think you're a true inspiration and for people going through similar experiences, or anyone who might be going through anything mentally or in terms of health and illness. Mate, you're a true inspiration, and I know for a fact that just doing this interview and doing what you're doing, and I'll pass it over to you in a second in regards to where you're at in life now. But with what you're doing now, I can guarantee you that you're helping one person. That one person might have cancer, and you know that one person you saved their life. So, mate, I'm proud of you. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate that, Jaden, mate. I really do. It's you know, it's sharing my story with someone like yourself. You know, I admire what you're doing. You know, I get
thank you.
a fair look. I get a fair few sort of different podcast requests, whatever. I do a lot of work in sort of different charities and foundations, and you can't do everything. It's just the nature of it. But I looked into your story a little bit with the podcast that you're taking the initiative of doing, and I admire that. And I think that's, you know, for someone like myself to, like I said, take an hour out of my afternoon to do something good for what you're doing is what it's all about, mate. So no, I appreciate the time as well, and it's
Truly means a lot.
And keep doing what you're doing, mate. And hopefully, you know, like you touched on, it doesn't matter if there's 10 people listening, 100 people listening, 10,000 people listening. To me, it's irrelevant. You know, like you said, if one person, it sounds cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, because if one person listens to this as I'm talking right now, you know, wherever they may be, in the car, you know, the backyard, the bloody, you know, bedroom, whatever. If one person listens to this and it goes, you know what, I'm going to check my bloody nuts in the shower tonight. Or, you know what, I've been putting off that bloody, like I said, freckle on my arm for too long. I'm going to book in to see get a skin check. Or, you know what, I've just been feeling off for the last 2 weeks. Something's not right. I'm going to go book in to see my doctor, or just talk about it, or reach out to a mate. They're the little things. If one person does that, to me, you know, it makes it all worthwhile.
Exactly. And fast forward now to where you are now in life. I've seen you do a lot of talks to maybe companies or just around Australia. Do you find that having a bloke talking about these things, do you get a lot of guys going up to you and saying, shit, like all I needed was someone else of my age demographic or my sex to actually tell me, you know what, fuck, let's do something about it. Let's get myself checked up.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And that's what I've found's been really, I didn't know what to expect when I first sort of shared my story. You know, I'm just a normal guy. You know, I'm a normal guy in the army who's just been through an unfortunate health journey. But I didn't realize until I started sort of sharing it and just being my genuine self that it actually connects with people, because it's relatable. You know, I'm not this, you know, sports star or celebrity or whatever. I'm just this normal guy that people can relate to. So I think in a way that's more powerful, because people listening or in the audience or, you know, wherever it may be, might look at that and go, fuck me, like he's not too dissimilar to me, you know, and he's gone through that. And what he's saying makes sense. You know, why am I doing that, or why have I been putting that off? And I think it's just easier to relate. So yeah, look, I always say, you know, I gave a presentation at Telstra recently and 500 or so people on a webinar. And, you know, I always say at the end, there's a bit of a Q&A or whatever, but I always say to people, like, please reach out. I'm not one of those people that are just going to share my story and, you know, thanks very much and never speak to you again. So I put myself out, and sometimes it might take me a while, but you know, from that particular example this week, you know, might get a dozen or so different lengthy emails and people sharing their stories and opening up, and these amazing, powerful stories from these everyday people who have gone through some horrific things in their life. You know, this particular gentleman opened up to me and he was talking about losing his brother to suicide, and his cousin recently died of cancer, and he had a colleague who had gone through this, and it just went on. And he'd been through this massive journey, and he just felt, you know, I felt honored that he said, look, I don't usually open up or talk about this, but he opened up to me in this email. And I got back to him this morning actually and just said, look, thanks so much. Like it's amazing for you to feel like you can open up and good on you. Cause you know, I'm all about being open, honest and vulnerable. If we can all be open, honest and vulnerable, well, we're going to encourage others to do the same. And that's what I hope that my story, and you're all about vulnerability, mate. And I hope that my story and the presentations I give or the podcasts that I run or coming on other people's podcasts encourages other people to be open, to be vulnerable, to share their story. Because that can go a long way. So yeah, look, I enjoy it, mate. I really do enjoy what I do. And I think, you know, I often say it's making the best of a bad situation. And I think, you know, it's been a pretty bad situation, but I'm definitely making the best of what I've gone through. Yep. And to me, it's kind of, in a weird way, makes what I've gone through worthwhile. Because it's like, well, fuck, if I've gone through that over the last 7 years or so, but it's potentially saving lives, well, you know, I'll take that, mate. I'll take it. It's a win.
Yeah. And this is a bit of, what I'm about to say is a little bit strange, but I find that with everything we go through in life, sometimes we focus and prioritize on the negatives, but with every negative, there's always a positive, whether it be 6 months, 12 months down the track. And for yourself, what you've been through, obviously in the past, you would have been flooded with negativity. But where you are now in life, what you've just said to me, there's so much positivity in that you're from what you've been through to where you are now, you're essentially probably saving so many people's lives and giving people a reason to get themselves checked up or talk if they need to talk.
Mate, spot on. And that's exactly right. And, you know, did I see that at the time, you know, midst, you know, being in hospital for 5 weeks, very depressed, you know, very unwell, getting kept alive from a bloody pouch, couldn't even drink a sip of water for 3 weeks, lost 20 kilos. Like, you're in a bad, bad way. If you sort of asked myself back then, let's tell you, just push through the next couple of years, you'll be sitting here chatting to Jaden on Couching the Mind, mate, and you'll be in a good place. You'll be Movember ambassador. You'll be, you know, you'll be in a good way, mate. Just, you know, just chin up. If I said that to myself back then, I would have told myself to fuck off. I would have, you know, but yeah. I think that's the message right there, is that quite often you can't see that. And it's like when people are depressed, you know, are going through some real big struggles in their life. At that point in time, it can be hard to see that little light at the end of the tunnel. It can be difficult. I've been there. I get it. But that's what you got to think. You got to think, well, I might not see it now. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be a week. It might be a year from now, but I will get through this. I will get through it. And that's the overarching message, that if you can take one thing away, and if you are struggling, is that it will get better. It will get better. You only have to talk to people, and I've fortunately connected with people who have had suicide attempts as part of some research and study that I've done. And I've had a guest on my podcast, and you may have spoken to some as well, mate. And it's very powerful. And you speak to these people, and one of the recurring themes is that when they went through that, at that point in time, A, they weren't thinking rationally, but B, they thought everyone else would be better off. They truly believed that. But then you speak to these people now, and they look back at that situation in their life, and they cringe and go, fuck, like, if only I could have told myself back then, you know, if only I could have just sat down with myself. Because these people now are doing amazing things. They've got, whether it be, you know, a couple kids, or doing well at work, or loving partner, or sharing their stories. And that's the powerful message. And you speak to these people who have been at the lowest of lows to realize that, fuck me, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I might not see it, but I'm going to get there. And that's, you know, pretty powerful message.
Yeah, a lot of people that I've spoken to, essentially, they don't know their purpose in life, and they feel like as if they're a void in society, and that if they end their life, that, like you said, exactly what you said, that the world's better off without them. And it's about overcoming that hurdle, and then you'll click, and you'll hit a point of realization where you go and you say to yourself, oh fuck, like, you know, maybe there is a reason for me to be around. Maybe me spreading my message of things that I've gone through in the past is my purpose, is my passion. And for me, and I'm going to be honest, for me, that was me I didn't know exactly why I was here, what my purpose was. But for me to open up and to help others is my passion, and I feel like that's my personal purpose. But it's a matter of finding out your own personal purpose and just striving and continue to do and do more.
No, mate, well done and well said, because it's spot on. You know, we all have different journeys, different paths, different purposes, or whatever you want to call it in life. And I think we often get too caught up in comparing ourselves to what our old schoolmates are doing, or what our brother's doing, or what our bloody,
Exactly.
mate friends are doing. You know, they've just bought a house. Holy shit, why haven't I bought a house? Or they've just got a job promotion, or they're driving that car. And a lot of it's materialistic stuff. And we just assume they're happy, and why aren't I doing this, and why aren't I doing that? But I think if you get rid of all that clutter, and like you said, mate, find out what you want to do, find out what makes you happy, find out what makes you get up in the morning, and focus on that stuff, the stuff that matters. I think if everyone can be grounded with that, that's the important part. And, you did touch on, mate, I just wanted to quickly add in there that, at the same time, it's important to recognize that we're all going to have down days and days
100%.
that aren't as good as others. And I think, you probably touched on this before, but it's, I'm all for important repetition, but, it's important to know that when you're having that down day or down week or down month, that there's a better day coming. And then when you do have that good day, it's like, fuck me, this is fantastic. I don't know what it is, but I just feel great today. You've gone for that morning walk, or you've done this, or your things are just going to plan. You're making a few good phone calls, whatever. Yeah. Those days will come. Then you might have another day where you go, I get those where you think, fuck, I'm not doing well today. I'm flat. I don't know what it is, but just recognize that we all have that. We all have down days. You're not alone in it. You're not. You just need to realize that it's you'll get through it. So I think it's for me anyway. It's something.
No, exactly what you said. In that we all have our down days, but it's a matter of knowing and being able to talk about whatever you may be going through that's making you feel down.
Spot on, mate. Yep.
But thank you so much for the time today, Hugo. With your story, as I said, and I've touched base before on, is extremely inspirational for those who may be going through something themselves, or just to listen in general, because I'm proud of you for what you're doing, for what you're trying to achieve, and I know for a fact that you're changing one person's life.
No, I really appreciate it, mate. Always appreciate the time. And like I said to you at the start of this episode, one thing that we can all give up, doesn't matter who you are, you can absolutely give up your time. And the fact, no doubt, you're giving up so much of your time to do this. I know what it's like. People listening, podcasts aren't easy. It's it takes a lot of time planning and putting energy and really wanting to, like you touched on, the purpose and passion in doing what you're doing. And you often do it for little reward, but you do it because you love doing it. You're connecting with people, and it's the little messages you get from listeners, or the people that you don't even know you're connecting with, but it's changing their entire day. And I think, hats off to you, mate. And I just wanted to finish off, because I'm a big one for action, and I'm a big one for, at the end of something like now, for someone to actually to do something, and there's a couple through the episode, i.e. checking your balls or whatever, but here's one which I like, and it's, we can all do it. And so, something, if you're listening to this, you pull out your phone, and if you're driving, or maybe do it when you're home, or when you're not bloody pulling your phone out driving, but you open your contact list. And I'm all for connection, right? I'm all for connection. I truly believe that something like suicide is the death of loneliness. I think that COVID's taught us one thing. It's that connection is more important than ever, right? We all crave connection. We all want support. We all probably don't realize that there's more of it around that we give credit for. So go to your contact list if you're listening to this. And like I said, if 10% or 1% or one person's doing this now, well, hey, that's good. Scroll through your contacts. And for me, I've just got so many bloody contacts. So I don't even know who they are. You've acquired over the years, but keep scrolling into a name jumps out at you. A name that, whether you're old schoolmates, colleagues, it's an old cousin you haven't spoken to in a while. Shit, it might even be your brother who you realize you haven't spoken to in a while. But keep scrolling through until you see a name, and there'll be a name that jumps out at you, and you realize, I've not reached out or heard from that particular person in a while. Stop at that name, whoever it is, click in on the name, send a message, open the messages up and send a message to that person. Send a message to that person. Send it. I don't care what it is, but just send a message to say, hey, mate, how you going? How's everything been? It's been too long. What are you up to these days? I've been thinking of you recently. Let's catch up. Just something like that to connect with that particular person is so powerful. And I've only recently started doing that through a good mate of mine now. I'd like to call a good mate, a guy called Gus Wallen. And he sort of did a similar thing for me. And it's a really powerful tool. And I actually do it weekly. I do a sort of a weekly challenge where at the end of every week, I've got a little reminder in my calendar, Friday afternoon, and I do that same thing and I reach out to someone new every week. And so if you're listening to this, that can be the kind of the takeaway challenge, whatever you want to call it, the end of the Couching the Mind episode is to pull your phone out, go through the contacts, find someone you haven't heard from in a while, reach out to them, connect with them, because a simple text might make all the difference and you just never know who might need it as well. So there you go, Jade. And I thought I'd finish off on a bit of a challenge for the listeners, mate.
Thank you so much. And it's actually crazy how much words can impact on someone, especially if they're going through something quite tragic and bad mentally. Just to say and reach out to them, hey mate, how's it going? You know, they could be in isolation, they could be quite introverted and they're going through a really tough time and they don't like to reach out to people. And just to get that one message, I can guarantee you it'll put them in a positive state of mind. It won't fix things, but it'll start them on the path to recovery. Spot
on, mate. Starts the conversations, keeps the conversations going. And like I said, it's, we all need that connection. So, well done, mate. It's been a pleasure chatting to you today. Look forward to following your journey and seeing what you get up to. But it's maybe one day we can catch up in person for a coffee or a beer, mate.
Oh, I'd love to do that, Hugo. And again, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. You're a true inspiration. And I just wanted to say, keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a great job at it.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate. This has been episode 17 of Couch the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. And today, Hugo and I have gone over the topic of the domino effect. Anyways, guys, if you have any more questions and queries, I'll put Hugo's social media accounts in the link below if you want to reach out to him. And as always, to me, feel free to message me on the Couch the Mind podcast page. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll speak to you guys soon. Catch you later.